Namaste, dear students, friends, brothers, and sisters. My name is Bharat, and I am the Ayurveda consultant and Vedic astrologer at an advisor at the Northern Colorado School of Yoga. And it is my pleasure to address to you today, perhaps for the first time. And we're dealing during these days about, on the signs, about the zodiac signs of the zodiac. And today I am very happy to talk about the fascinating sign of Scorpio. Okay, Scorpio is the topic today. The Scorpion sign, particularly Scorpio Lagna, which is a Scorpio ascendant. Lagna is a term which means ascendant in Vedic astrology. And we use Vedic astrology as a tool to assess some Ayurvedic diagnosis, indications, and it actually, the ascendant shows our personality, which deals a lot with our mission in life, with our proclivities in terms of disease and in terms of what we are going to experience throughout life in every aspect, like materially, physically, spiritually, health-wise, etc., financially. So we are going to, I'm going to portray to you about this fascinating sign of Scorpio, because Scorpio is a very, very particular sign. It is actually the first sign. It's the 8th natural sign from the zodiac. And it is the first sign that whose rulers are two planets. Okay, there are two planets that co-rule Scorpio. Okay, the second sign that is co-ruled by two planets is Aquarius, which is the 11th natural from the zodiac. Today we're covering the 8th natural of the zodiac, which is Scorpio. And that's quite a particular trait since, it's quite intense. We already heard about Mars ruling Aries, the very first planet in the zodiac, the very first sign in the zodiac. And Mars is actually also ruling the 8th house, but it's not doing it alone. It's doing it with Ketu, the renunciate planet. We already studied about Mars. Mars is the individualist planet. It's a planet that asserts its individuality. It is characterized by its courage, audacity. It is, it's very authoritarian. Okay, it provides protection, security. It is actually associated with the law enforcers. Okay, and like the policemen, like the military, like National Guard, etc. And martial artists as well. It's just ruled by Mars, as the term says itself. But it also has these very deeply spiritual connotation in terms of the fire, which the Ketu represents. Ketu represents not only the heat, but the spiritual, the heat, that the sadhaka, the aspiration, that fire energy that goes upwards and invites us to transcend the base energies, and just to go higher into the more spiritual, more subtle realms, and more in the more subtlety, right? So more subtle levels. So that's Ketu. Ketu is the renunciate planet. So we're seeing a lot of intensity in this sign, Scorpio, because first, it's the 8th natural, like I mentioned. It's the 8th natural sign from the zodiac, and the eighth planet, all right, the 8th natural as well as the 8th planet that you have in your personal individual chart will deal with past lives. Okay, as natural 8th from the zodiac, it deals with past life. Scorpio deals with the occult, the secrecy, everything that's secret, death, anything that's unseen, that's invisible, the mystery, all types of mystery. All of them are related to the 8th house, and of course, particularly to Scorpio being the natural 8th house from the zodiac. So it has a lot of intensity. because it has the intensity of the fire of Mars, and it has the also the fire of Ketu, which is the thirst and hunger for self-realization, knowledge of the truth. Okay, and it's quite a very audacious planet. It has a very peculiar personality. Uh, it deals in the extremes in a way. It's a kind of an all or nothing uh, kind of a lagna, kind of a planet, for personality, for a personality. We could see the extremes, like I said, we could see very wise people, and we could see the worst rogues and the worst, terrorists and low lives that you can see. They could share very well the Scorpio ascendant. People, personalities like the Buddha, Lord Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama was a Scorpio ascendant, but also some of the worst terrorists and lowlifes also belong. And you may ask why? What would the Buddha have in common with a thief or with a lowlife? It's basically their audacity to dive deep into whatever they're searching. In case of the Buddha, it's just in search of truth, in search of, he was the awakened one, right? So you need the light, you need the fire to awaken. And if you don't use the light to awaken yourself and to see the light, then you burn yourself. And that's where also the Ketu, the other extreme goes to. Use the fire. The fire can burn, remember? The fire can provide you light and it can provide you heat. So these different traits of heat, which is also characterized in the Pitta dosha from the Ayurveda standpoint, are all portrayed in Scorpio Lagna. So actually the eighth karma, the eighth house is associated with past lives. So suffering due to past life karma is indicated by this sign. So it is a huge opportunity this Lagna provides. People in this Lagna have an extremely big opportunity to evolve spiritually very quickly, or just simply risk everything for whatever they're doing. They are intense. They simply go and they are not like warm. It's either hot or cold. It's not. It's kind of extremely determined. It has the determination of Mars, and it has actually Ketu has no head, so it goes straight to its goal. It doesn't matter what it costs, and what the consequences are. They are like let's say you're Scorpio Lagna, and you are in search of liberation and freedom. You are capable of giving your body, giving your life. You already have no head, as Ketu has no head. Remember Rahu and Ketu. Rahu is the body, is the head, and Ketu is the body without the head, and the Rahu is the head without the body. So in terms of Ketu will just dive deep into it. It would not hesitate to give his own life for freedom or liberation if that's what he's seeking. And there are things that are non-negotiable in this sense. It's the straightforwardness and the determination are tremendously intense. Okay, so whatever division in this sign, that there are different divisions in this sign that will determine the level of suffering or challenge that you're gonna face being a Scorpio Lagna. It provides. It's not negative. Doesn't need to be negative. It's challenging. It's a great opportunity to grow spiritually and materially, and into the highest purpose of life and highest goals that you may have. Okay, but remember, Scorpio is an animal. It has a tail filled full of poison, right? And the poison is hot, right? So that's why part of the interest in Scorpio, when we talk a little bit more about its traits, it's interested in chemistry, in drugs, in surgery, because it's piercing. It's Pitta. Pitta is a piercing type of a trait, right? So I'm going to describe here a few traits of people with a Scorpio Lagna or Scorpio ascendant, and they're trying to mix together with the traits that we already discussed about Mars and Ketu. For instance, if we come to the physical attributes of a Scorpio Lagna, it has flesh and broad limbs. It's fleshy. It's very muscular. Have broad limbs. They're perfected by exercise. So they do exercise or martial. You see all the wrestlers or the boxers or the military people, martial artists. They are very fit. All right. They're also very clever. They have the fire. Okay. They have the fire. They could be crooked in this position because they could be like very determined as well as very compassionate. So they have the extremes in terms of personality. They can be inclined to quarrel because they don't just put up with mediocrity or with in-between kind of approach, right? They could be very quarrelsome. They could also be extremely generous, okay? Because Mars is very generous, very, very compassionate. Remember, the Buddha is the Lord of compassion. So they're very compassionate. They could be very giving. They could be very pious. They could give their money to others. I mean, their absence of greed. They are like, in terms of physicality, they could have like a prominent chest, a sunken belly, depressed nose, tawny eyes. They're also very adventurous, very firm, very courageous. Could be fierce too. They could be troubled by pitta ailments, from the bile, from the digestive system, etc., from the liver, gallbladder, small intestine, and pitta organs, right? They usually have a big family, either many brothers and sisters or many cousins. They have a big extended family. They could get into quarrel with anybody. Doesn't matter if it's their friend, if it's their preceptor, if it's their close ones or dear ones. They are not going to put up with dear ones or close ones just because of the proximity in their relationship. They stand by their individual standards. They're very individualistic, not selfish, but very individualistic. They assert their individuality, and they respect the individuality of others, and they make sure their individuality is respected as well. Okay, they are also always, they're engaged in attracting people from the opposite sex. They're very, very sexual guys too, because the 8th house also is signified by sexuality. Okay, so they're usually attractive. They could be very attractive. They will serve a king, and they serve a king because their 10th house is it's in Leo. And Leo is ruled by the sun, which represents the king, and the 10th house is the house of mission in life. So they would serve like people of prominence, right? They will have enemies because the 6th house from Scorpio is Aries, which is also ruled by Mars, and they quarrel. There's quarrel. I mean, the 6th house is the house of disease as well as the house of enemies. Okay. They will possess a very amiable wife. It's not always like that because they usually have troubles with the Mars and Venus convergence, okay? But they could be very affectionate. They could be extremely amiable, very religious. They could be religious as well. And they do prefer to avoid normal procedures. They are natural troublemakers in the bad sense and in the good sense as well. They could be rigid as the Scorpio exoskeleton. So the best advice for Scorpio Lagna is to compromise with themselves, be committing to themselves, have some sense of self-commitment, right? And otherwise they're going to be digging their own cave. Okay, so they have a very peculiar personality. It's basically, again, just to summarize, it's because they are co-ruled. It's a sign co-ruled by 2 very strong planets, fiery planets, which are Mars and Ketu. And it's a peculiarity that only Aquarius shares, having Saturn and Rahu. in their parts that will be discussed in the 11th, when we cover about the 11th house. So welcome. I mean, the Scorpio is very challenging. It is very assertive. It is very individualistic, and very respectful of himself and others, right? And it's not warm. It's either hot or cold. It's either what you see is what you get. Is the kind of approach that you'll see in a Scorpio Lagna. Okay, and these are general traits. You can just call us at Northern Colorado School of Yoga. I'm Bharat. I'm available for consultations in Vedic astrology. I'm available also for Ayurveda consultations. I usually combine both in a sense that, when I see your sixth and your eighth house, I can tell where disease can come from past karma or from actual karma, and how to deal with it properly, and which doshas would be affected. So that's how I approach the Ayurveda and the astrology together, the Vedic astrology. So just call us, and I'll be happy to contact with you, and just take care. Okay, namaste, and have a great day.